All right, all right, all right. Welcome in. Happy Thursday evening. I hope you're ready for some NFL action. Thursday Night Football. This is on the clock. This is a part of the Toilets to Titles podcast network. This is episode number 37. You see kind of a new face next to me. Somebody you've been seeing. It's now my co-pilot on this ride. Shout out to Nino Brown. I know he's out there doing big things over for the CFB Nation. I appreciate everything you did for the T2T network. Appreciate everything you did for the show. But now going forward, Efram is going to be joining me at Mr. Irrelevant on the Twitter. And we're going to be talking some players that we are our guys. Our guys. So, Efram, how are we doing this evening?
Doing awesome, getting into scouting. We're a couple weeks in now. We can start seeing who's good, who's not. And, this show kind of has a dual purpose. You got the casual fans who watch on Saturdays, and this is just a couple more guys to watch, keep your eye out on for. A game's on 7 p.m., and you see one of these dudes. He's not a player you want to miss. And then for the guys like us who they're doing the scouting, they're going through the film, it's hard to scout early. Not this year, but usually I'll be scouting around November 1st, and I don't really start the first couple weeks into the season because it's hard to know which guys are even worth scouting, right? You got guys who think that they're good 3 weeks in and then they're completely off the radar. So these are a couple prospects who, rest assured, will be there the whole draft season, and you can get started on immediately.
Hell yeah. And we also have, like, we've been going. So go to toiletstotitles.com. You can check out our player profiles. I just wrote up another one right now. Tyler Nubin, safety, Minnesota. So you want to go check that out, toiletstotitles.com. We also just completed our first NFL draft mock draft, first round. We're going to be completing those bi-monthly. So you're going to see another one of those middle October. And that brings me to a point. One of the reasons why it's kind of important to start really diving. We've been diving in for a few months now. But right now, the casual fan is starting to come around because you got teams like the Chicago Bears and even the Cincinnati Bengals that aren't doing as well as their fans expected. And it's kind of looking like draft season is already beginning. So there's going to be people trickling in who are kind of might be, I'm not saying you're quitting on the NFL season, but maybe you're being a realist. And I love the NFL draft because it's the season of hope. And this, when things are tough during the season, man, it can get tough. Players get hurt. Your favorite player gets hurt. It sucks. We want to be the guys to bring you hope. We want to lift you up, give you some ideas, some players that might look good wearing your favorite team's jersey. All right. So make sure if you like the show, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, and let us know if you agree or disagree, or in the comments, if we didn't talk about a player that is somebody that's on your list, is one of your guys early in the process, throw it in the comments. And if we haven't watched them yet, it's a good chance we will. And if we have, I'll reply to you in the comments and I'll let you know what I think about him. So we're gonna go back and forth, Efram. I'm gonna start with one of my guys, and this is kind of a layup. This one's kind of easy. It's kind of a slam dunk. It's Drake May, quarterback, UNC. We had Dane Brugler on a few weeks ago, and there's a bunch of really strong quarterbacks in this class, and there's one elite quarterback in this class. But Drake May, is my opinion, is the closest guy to Caleb Williams in this class. And if Caleb Williams does decide to stay at USC, because he did mention there's 5 teams that he considered playing for, and he also mentioned he can make more at USC than he can as a rookie in the NFL, I think Drake May's a guy. 6'5", 220 pounds. In 2023, new coaching staff, new weapons, 4 games, 96 completions, 132 attempts, 72.7 completion percentage. And I believe that's the highest. I think his head coach said that's the highest completion percentage for any UNC quarterback ever through the first 4 games. So that's impressive. 1,187 yards, 5 touchdowns, and the 4 interceptions are worrisome. But he's doing it with some new weapons around him and a new system. I really like him. His 2022 stats are phenomenal. 66.2 completion percentage, 4,321 yards, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 157.9 QBR. Last year, he was number 8 in the ACC in rushing yards with 698. He can move for a big guy. 6'5", he moves well. And I'm sure there's some NFL teams who are probably going to be picking early in the draft, who probably need a quarterback, that are probably hoping he stops running as much as he does, but he can do it. His poise in the pocket is phenomenal. He made a pass with his left hand the other day. It wasn't a pretty pass, but he was outside of the pocket. He had a linebacker on his shoulder. Touchdown. Dude, he makes throws off his back foot with zip, placement, strength. He's got good skill. He's got good awareness. Like you'll see him go through his reads, look for his second guy, look for his third guy, look for his fourth guy. I'm very impressed with Drake May. I think he's going to be an elite level prospect and an elite level player at the next level.
Exactly. He's already getting comparisons to, Herbert. And while that's crazy, Herbert's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's been producing at a college level at a better rate than Herbert did. He's been showing the traits. That lefty throw is just magical. He has the IQ. Like, there's Caleb Williams, there's Drake May, and then there's this whole gap of QB3s. So I think Drake May right now is second, third, fourth overall pick. And with the Bears having the first 2 picks in the draft, I wouldn't be surprised to see them trade down to 4 or 5 and having one of those QB needy teams going up to number 2. And
Man, so go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, unless you want to cut in, I had to start with, his prospect to know, my main man, Xavier Legette. I came on a few weeks ago to speak about him. He's a 5th-year senior, right? He had 4 years of 432 career receiving yards. So you're saying, why is this guy even on the map? And he wasn't coming into this year. No one really heard about him in the draft world. There was no buzz. And then after the first 2 games of the season, he's leading college football in receiving yards. He has that wicked connection with Spencer Rattler, and he was just torching defenses. So I came on the pod. We were talking about the head-to-head with Georgia that week, going one-on-one with Kamari Lassiter, arguably a first-round corner in the draft. And he was great. 7 catches for 71 yards. There were a few plays where he won, where he didn't even get the ball, and there was a hold. Complete crazy hold that wasn't called where he was going to torch Kamari Lassiter. So he came and he produced against high-level competition. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, wins in all the ways that a big body receiver does with body control and physicality, the ability to boss a dude. And then last week against Mississippi State, wow, he catches the pass slant 10 yards in. He's 230 pounds, immediately takes off and torches the defense. He hit, I think it was like 23 miles an hour on the tracking. And then his next touchdown, he's on the seam. Spencer Rattler floats one in. He catches it with maybe an inch or 2 of separation on the sideline. The second the ball hits his hands, he's off, right? 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 feet, 5 feet of separation, touchdown, right? He's 6'3", 230, and he can move. He can catch like a big dude. He can body like a big dude, and he has the stats. And he's playing a high-level competition. Mississippi State, great defense. It's an SEC defense. Tennessee's an SEC defense. Georgia. We know about that. So when you do this competition, stats, physical profile, competition, you got to put this guy in the first round of buzz. You may not be seeing it now, but in a few weeks, you're going to be seeing him, pick 29, 30, 31.
I'm seeing, you mentioned you kind of put him on the map for me a few weeks ago on the show. And ever since then, his name's been popping up. It's been popping up and he's been flashing. I'm excited to put him on some film. I'm excited to watch him. Why don't you go ahead with your second player?
Well, yeah, just to bounce off you for a sec, it's going to be interesting in a month or 2 months. If he's still producing, then what are they going to do with him compared to a guy like Malik Neighbors, who's a younger prospect who's been performing better when Xavier Legette's doing better, but as a 5th-year senior. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
I think due to the strength of the wide receiver position, it's hard to say actually because the NFL is bizarre. The guys that get picked, we as analysts have like a hierarchy of styles of player that we like. And, usually the consensus rankings are pretty similar. And like right now, Harrison, Igbuka, Malik Neighbors, but some NFL teams, they like the short guy who can fly. Some NFL teams like the big guy who can high point. So I wouldn't be shocked if after the 1 or the 2, 3, 4, and 5 are a bizarre combination. Yeah. Anything could happen. It's all about, it's what's your flavor with the NFL team.
With receivers, it's just like every year the receiver class is just
right.
No one predicts it in the first round.
Look, look at Rashee Rice. Like, look at, just things, not that he was but I'm just saying, like, he went a little higher than some people expected. I know Nino was super high on him going. So it's just anything could happen. And the great thing about the wide receiver position, and if your team is NFL is wide receiver needy, is that's probably the position that translates the easiest. Guys are coming in day one and contributing.
Yeah, I'll say it's like receiver and running back. Those dudes are great immediately.
Right.
So, yeah. My next guy, I actually posted about him on Toilets and Titles. You could check it out. Nice little profile on there. Is defensive end from Washington, Braylon Trice. He's 6'5", 270. So he's a bigger defensive end, with the exact size profile you want from a guy. And he's been dominant the past 2 years. Last year, he, I think, was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He controlled defenses the whole season. And he came back another year, and so far he's doing the same thing. In his past 13 games, he has 9 sacks and 12 tackles for loss. So he's contributing at a high level. And with a guy that size, he just wins with speed, power, right? You want a guy 6'5" who could weave around, who could power through offensive linemen like that. You don't find that very often. So he'll just rush through these Pac-12 offensive linemen like they're nothing. His contact balance is terrific. He converts speed to power on the outside. Then what takes him to the next level is that he's not just a bull in the China shop, roughing around with flailing his arms, having no idea what he's doing, right? He has moves on moves, right? He has these technician skills where, honestly, he's probably top 3 of guys I've scouted so far in terms of just counters, right? Offensive linemen are trying to push him back because he's so strong, and he'll throw a hand under, a hand over, and that makes him unstoppable so far in the Pac-12. And that kind of is also the big concern with him, because the Pac-12 doesn't have great offensive linemen, and it's hard to really judge Braylon Trice off that when you're not going to really see film off better offensive linemen. So whatever, that's going to be a concern come draft day, but he's done everything you want to see. I said it was Xavier Legette. If you want to hang your hat on a player, you got to have the size, you got to have the stats, and you got to have the traits. And you got to have the film. And Braylon Trice is all 3, and he's been killing it.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it, man. I love it. All right, I'm going to move to the defensive side of the football as well. Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa, is a guy I was super high on going into the summer. Iowa DB, I was a huge fan of Desmond King. Love Desmond King out of Iowa. I still feel like that guy doesn't get enough respect. He's been an all-pro, and he's just moving from NFL team to NFL team. So shout out to Desmond King. Shout out to Riley Moss coming out of Iowa. But this cat, Cooper DeJean, is different. 6'1", 203 pounds. His stats this year, 19 solo tackles, 11 assists, 30 total tackles, half a tackle for loss, interception, pass defended. His PFF coverage grade is 82.1, which is the 9th best among draft eligible corners. His 7.2 yards per reception is 11th best amongst draft eligible corners. This guy, he's currently number 13 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. Explosive, size, sticky. When quarterbacks see him lined up on one side of the field, they look into the other direction. And usually when I watch, the signature of an Iowa defender is grit. Cooper DeJean has the grit, but also has the stickiness and the coverage instincts. I see him in man coverage. He knows how to shock a wide receiver, how to get into his shoulder pads, and then how to ride his hip all the way up the sidelines. In zone, he has the eye discipline to watch the quarterback drop into his set, react to the football, and fly. He just doesn't get a lot of opportunities because he's respected at this point in his career. People know who he is. People avoid Cooper DeJean, and I wouldn't be surprised. I loved Brian Branch last year. They're not very, Brian Branch played that star role at Alabama, but with Cooper DeJean's athletic ability and his skill in zone and man, this is a guy that I don't think is just going to be a corner at the next level. I think he's going to be playing in the box. I think he's going to be coming off the edge. I think he's going to be playing deep. I think they're going to be putting him all over the field. So I'm super high on Cooper DeJean. I'm going to move on to my third player, right? And then I'm going to pass it back to you, Efram.
I'll just say,
go ahead.
Just for a second, like Cooper DeJean, he has that defensive versatility and that special teams ability. I mean, you probably saw that punt return touchdown.
Yes.
And NFL teams love that. Like, it's just a display of the speed and the acceleration that most defensive backs at his size don't really have.
Well, man, that's why I love the Bruce Feldman freak list every year. Like, I usually I kind of shout out to draftcountdown.com. I usually check them out, check their big board, got names that kind of intrigue me, teams that kind of intrigue me. That's kind of where I start my list. And then I head over to the Bruce Feldman freak list and I pick some names off of there and I look at his description. I respect that list, man. DeJean is number 13. He's number 13 for a reason. And that punt return completely showcases it. He is just a guy you want on the football field. Any opportunity you can get him there because he's a player. He's a ball player. All right, another guy who's a ball player, Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of FSU. He's a guy like 2 or 3 weeks ago, everybody was talking about him. I wrote him up in August. Super high on him coming over from Michigan State. 6'4", 210 pounds. His 6 receiving touchdowns are tied for 4th amongst draft-eligible wide receivers. Former 2-sport athlete at Michigan State, basketball and football. But so he's got the high point and leaping ability of a basketball player, but he's got the physicality and tenacity of a football player. I've seen basketball players play the game, not Antonio Gates. Like he played this game aggressively, but I've seen them, or you see a track athlete come to the NFL and they're just speed guys. You see like a basketball player, he's just a high point guy. Coleman, not only is he a high point guy, he's a it's my ball guy. And then after the catch, his ability to make the first defender miss. When he's one on one after the catch, he has a very good ability to set the defender up, to get him unbalanced, to make him sit on his heels, and then make his move. He sees the position the defender is in, he knows the move to make. And then when it's go time, it's like he sees red and he's out. And you've seen that a few times this year. Natural X receiver. You're going to put him in on the outside day one. Go watch his highlight film. It's phenomenal. I mean, and at FSU, they got dudes everywhere. FSU's probably going to be, you know, probably going to be in the college football playoffs. If they keep it all together, I think they're going to get there. They
Sure, for
got
sure.
I got two players from FSU on my guys list. And the second guy I'm going to mention a little later on after I pass it to you, he's barely getting touches right now because they got they can only give the ball to one person each play. So Keon
Uh-huh.
Coleman, absolute freak.
The second he makes the NFL every game, Keon Coleman's a basketball player. Like they're gonna
Yeah.
do it every time he
Yeah.
high points a ball.
Oh man, Chris Collinsworth's going to love it.
Yeah, for sure. So
All right, Efram, you're up.
yeah. So I actually want to start a couple years back, 2020. Jalen Phillips, star edge rusher coming into college, number one recruit in the country, right? Everyone is talking about him. He goes over to UCLA and he actually has to medically retire. I think it was a neck or a back concern, and he transfers over to Miami, and he absolutely kills everything in college football there, right? Like
Right.
he was on and off the field, everything, IQ, pass rush ability. He put out one of the best seasons film wise I've seen in a while, and he entered the draft. And you had guys like Brett Coleman comparing him to like a Bosa brother. The big concern with him was what are the medicals? Is he going to be red flagged by a lot of teams? He ended up getting drafted, I think it was 18th to the Dolphins. And so far, he's been spectacular. One of the best young premier pass rushers in the NFL. So that brings me to my guy, Leatu Latu, the edge rusher from UCLA, who has a similar path. He's not as high the prospect that Jalen Phillips was, but he had the injury. He was at Washington, out for 2 seasons with a neck injury, and came over to UCLA looking to play some football. And the past 2 seasons, he's been extraordinary. He's been doing everything you want out of a top, out of a top edge rusher in the nation. The last 2 seasons, 20% pass rush win rate. So that means every 5 snaps, he's winning one, which is up. You don't get many edge rushers like that. And he's been the highest graded edge rusher this season, 92.4 defensive grade. So based off the advanced stats and honestly the eye test, I'd say he's the best college edge rusher in college football so far. And he runs on all levels: speed to power. He's a cross chopper. He'll rip under and get behind offensive linemen. His film is the best of anyone I've watched so far. And I have him right now. I'm stating him. He is the best edge rusher in this class. If I'm doing a big board right now, he is edge one. The medicals will come out in February, March, and April. And then we'll hear more about him. The combine will come and you'll see on Twitter, like, don't draft him in the first round. Okay. We'll get to that when it comes to that. But right now, he's doing everything you want. He's absolutely dominant. And he does it in a way that just, he looks at a lineman and he says, I want to put you on your butt. I want to steamroll you every single play. And then when you try to block me, I'm going to go behind you. I'm going to win on the outside. I mean, fantastic. Nothing wrong with his tape really this year. Like, it's been a few games, but if he keeps putting this up, he could be a top 5 pick. Crazy, but I'm saying it right now because
Yeah, I mean,
Leatu Latu is different.
I like Jared Verse out of Florida State. He's probably going to be a top 10 pick. If someone has Latu above Verse, it's a good chance he's a top 10 pick. I mean, look at I'm having a brain fart. Texas Tech defensive end who went to the Raiders.
Tyree Wilson. Yeah, for sure.
Like look at his rise. So what I'm liking about your list as compared to mine is, especially with Leggett as well, these are guys that are freaks and are going to raise as the process continues. right? And UCLA, right? We got South Carolina. Like, they're not necessarily the darlings of the NFL. Iowa, known for defenders. People are going to expect somebody to come out of there. Florida State is up. So, like, my guys are kind of like early in the process, standouts. Yours are guys that are standouts that are going to skyrocket as the process continues. So I'm
Yeah.
digging it, man. Who's your next player, Efram?
Well, say the goal is basically like, 3 months from now, I go, hey, remember that podcast we did a couple months back? Like
Yeah,
all these guys are going super high.
right.
So yeah,
I love it.
my next guy, I mean, who? Cam Kitchens, the safety out of Miami. He is wow. I mean, best safety in the class, hands down. Rangy, all over the field. 6 interceptions last season. He's been balling out this season, and he's one of like the few safeties in college football that can really flip the script on an offense. Right? You don't get a lot of safeties putting up these stats and he'll make a play, return it back, break some passes up, cost them 3 and outs. And then within that group, there's not many rangy joystick safeties who are also conservative in their coverage. Andre Cisco a few years back was like that. Kirby Joseph, Illinois to the Lions is like that. Or they're guys who are flying over the field playing Madden safety in the
Jordan
back.
Whitehead.
Exactly, Jordan Whitehead. And they'll be in the back and they'll be running all over and they'll get big hits. Talanoa, Hufunga's like that as well. And then you'll see them a few plays later give up a 20-yard pass. Cam Kitchens is not like that. He's that rare attacking eyes that you could trust. We say, make these plays, Cam Kitchen. And you know what? I trust that nothing crazy is going to happen. He was an All-American last year. He'll probably be an All-American this year. He got injured a few games back, left in a ambulance. It was a scary sight, but he's good and he's back. He actually came back this game. I don't think he played that much. I think they were just rotating him back on the field. But I mean, there's not really much else from Cam Kitchens. I'm surprised he's not getting this love. Like, there's the top players in the class. I know there's the Brock Bowers and the Marvin Harrisons, and I have Cam Kitchens directly under that in a tier. So he's a fantastic prospect. And
yeah,
your team looking for a safety. Yeah.
That's another player. Nino was super high on Cam Kitchens as well. So I heard a lot about him throughout the summer, man. So I'm excited to watch some film on him. And I'm going to talk about a safety. I'm talking about Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota. 6'2", 205 pounds. This guy, he stands out. You watch, at Minnesota, any film, any game they're playing, he sticks out immediately. His 90.1 PFF coverage grade is second amongst all draft eligible corners and safeties. He's a safety, second amongst corners and safeties. His 3 interceptions, second amongst draft eligible corners. I think he's got 11 interceptions since starting at Minnesota, and I believe the record is 14. I might not be correct, but he's closing in on that through 5 games. So I mentioned all that already. I'm sorry. He excels in coverage. He showcases grit and willing. I mean, if you play at Minnesota, so Nubin, deep safety, right? He has range, and for a big player and for a defender, he knows how to extend away from his body with his hands and go snatch the football, which is not something that is always seen from a defensive player, especially a 6'2" defensive player. But all right. So the coverage is what's going to get him to the NFL. And that's what people are going to covet. But he's also gritty. You have to be a gritty defender if you're playing in Minnesota. You're playing against Nebraska. You're playing against Wisconsin. You're playing against Iowa. He will come downhill. At times, he lunges. He puts his head down a little bit. Sometimes he's a little too eager. Okay. But he is the dude. And I expect the dude to be eager. He will close. He will hit. He will wrap, and he'll take you down. So, yes, he is phenomenal in coverage. He's good in man. He suffers a little bit when he's trailing. I'd rather him be a shadow, somebody over the top, rather than somebody trailing right in your pocket. And that's, defensive coordinator is going to be able to work him there. Sometimes I'd rather him hold the holster back a little bit, not pull the trigger when coming downhill, and kind of be more of a cleanup player. But I'd rather somebody have the willingness and me have to dial them back than have to push them to do it. So Nubin is a dude.
He could be in the NFL right now. He's been doing this at a high level.
Yeah.
One question.
Go ahead.
Nubins or Kitchens right now? I don't know how much film you've watched on Kitchens, but you got to take one right now, project him to the NFL on the spot.
So I'm a Dan Quinn guy. So I'm going to go with Nubin just because he's the prototypical. Yeah. I can just put him in different coverage situations.
He's like more battle tested.
Kitchens to me seems like more of the Tampa 2, I could probably put him on either side, free safety or strong safety. Like Newman to me is the guy who fits in today's kind of nickel defense with the hybrid safety. So they got 3 safeties, but one of them's a hybrid. I could put him back and not worry about anything happening behind the linebackers. He's going to clean everything up. So I'd probably go Newman.
No, totally respectable. Totally. They're going to be both first rounders.
I love it. I love it. So my next player, Trey Benson. Well, this is my final player. Running back, FSU, 6'1", 211 pounds. His 2023 stats, they're not phenomenal. He's got 4.7 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, but he's yet to top 15 carries in a game. He has the frame and the capability to be a 3-down bell cow. He had 1,300 all-purpose yards, which ranks 18th highest single season for Florida State all time. And Florida State has had some dudes. He forced a missed tackle basically on every other carry last year. So this year, I don't think he's yet going. It's only a few games into the season. He hasn't topped 15 carries. I think we're going to see a lot of him down the stretch. And I think Johnny Wilson and I think Keon Coleman have a little bit to do with him, not getting the ball as much. They're kind of airing it out, but he's a downhill ball carrier. He'll run you over, but he's also got quick feet. I said the dude's a hoarder. The reason I said he's a hoarder, because the way he navigates through clutter is like, it's like his feet have eyes. For a 6'1", 211-pound guy to move like that and then be able to take off, his acceleration is very good. So he can bang, he could shift, and he could kind of squeeze through some tight spaces. So I'm feeling pretty good about Trey Benson this season.
Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate he's not getting more touches, but what can you really say in an offense like that? They got weapons on, and Jaheim Bell, the tight end, also. So
right. And I mean, he had a knee injury a few years ago. So again, scouts and GMs are probably kind of, as long as he clears, when they do their medical checkups at the combine, if he clears the checkups and he comes into the draft cycle not having too many carries this year, I don't think that's going to be a bad thing to GMs.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, again, a couple months away, and all you can do right now is watch the film. My last guy. So I got told at the beginning of the season, you got to scout this linebacker from Clemson, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Best linebacker in the class. He got that football blood in him. He's awesome. You're going to be blown away. And I watched him. He's nice. Nothing against him, but I didn't think his film was like A+ tier. Right. It was somewhere. It was fine. There's some concerns, but he's been playing all right so far. But I'm watching it. I'm saying, who's this number 0 right next to him on the field? And I'm watching this number 0 run around, flying. And no one told me about him before the season. And he's been getting a lot of buzz for the same reason. I've heard a few other guys mention the same thing about them trying to watch Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and end up watching my guy, Barrett Carter, number 0, linebacker from Clemson. 6'1", 225. So he's a smaller linebacker, but it hasn't really been much of a concern. He's legit. He is legit twitchiness, explosive runner, and no running backs outrunning him on the right side or the left side, and no quarterbacks getting past him when he's coming through the middle. You can also drop back super deep. If you want a Tampa 2 coverage guy, he fits the mold perfectly. There's not many guys who do it. You see Fred Warner dropping back, 20, 30 yards with the receiver. I'm not saying Barrett Carter is that type of guy, but you could do it quite similarly just in terms of the straight line speed and the burst. And then when he's coming downhill, he's a legit threat. There was a play that I assure you by the end of draft season you're going to be sick of, where he's coming downhill and hurdles the blocker, just doesn't even touch him and just hit the quarterback right off that. So every time you'll be seeing Barrett Carter's name paired with that. And he's a redshirt. Yeah.
Dabo Swinney mentioned that he's one of the best all-around football players he's ever coached. Wow. Like in general, which says a lot.
That's like the classic. Like every single draft season, you hear that about Nick Saban. Nick Saban, Bryce Young, the best player I've ever seen. Devontae Smith, the best.
Right.
So,
well, I've never heard Dabo say it. And
yeah,
Dabo's had some guys.
First.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. This is the first. So, yeah, the game slowed down for him, right? I spoke about the athletic traits, but he's reading the field much better than he did the last season, and he's shown the IQ already, where you're not really nervous about the mistakes he makes. You're just saying, okay, he has the athletic skills and he has enough IQ that we could start him immediately and put him in that Mike role or the Sam role and have him cover those tight ends. When you got the Mark Andrews, the Kittles, the Kelseys, the Pitts, Brock Bowers next season. You need a linebacker who can cover him. And when a tight end's running, a fake corner out route, and there's not many guys who could keep up with the Mark Andrews like that, Bear Carter fits that mold. Linebacker role is changing. You got these safeties turning into linebackers, and they lack some of the skills to really play all around. And Bear Carter has just that.
Man. All right. Excellent. So we planted our flags. Here's some of our guys. We appreciate everybody for tuning in to On the Clock for Efram's first episode in the co-pilot seat. So Efram, you knocked out of the park. It's going to be bi-weekly until we get a little bit closer to the draft cycle. We'll be back to every week once we get a little closer. So look out for our current mock draft that we just released. toiletstitles.com. You can see our first round projections. In 2 weeks, we're going to release another. And then on October 19th, we got Mark Schofield coming on, and we're going to kind of give some grades to this year's quarterback class, the class that has already come out. And then we're going to talk about the 2024 quarterback class, which we kind of talked about tonight with Drake May. We kind of alluded to some other players. So you're going to want to check that one out. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell. We got tons of content 24/7. If you play fantasy football, every Sunday morning from 10:30 a.m. Eastern to 12:30 p.m. we have a show called Title Time. You go in the YouTube chat, you ask your start sit questions, we answer it live on air. So Efram, do you have anything you want to tell the listeners before we wrap this up, my guy?
It's going to be a long draft season, and Toilet to Titles is the most reliable source out there. We're just putting stuff out day after day after day, and the best part is we receive all input. So if you guys have any, you don't like the profile, this guy's not as fast as you make him out to be. He's not as twitchy as you make him out to be. We love all that stuff. And we get back to the tape because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And if you want to talk to us one-on-one, you can hit the comments or you can join our gilded chat, which is like Discord. We have over 240 people in there. We have an NFL draft channel. We have a fantasy football channel. We have a game day channel, all that stuff. Reach out to me on the Twitter at Coach Schepps, or you can reach out to me, toiletstotitles@gmail.com. Say, Coach, I watched On the Clock this week. I want in that gilded server. I want to talk shop with you. We will welcome you in. So everybody, we appreciate you. We'll catch you all later on. Take care.